Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the DNN Hangout. We do not have Ralph with us today because this is one of those special edition things. It's kind of last minute because I'm very excited about something that was just released a few days ago. So we're recording on the 8th, but on the 4th, May the 4th be with you, as is tradition for one of our friends in the DNN ecosystem, Daniel Mettler. He released something very, very interesting and very exciting. So I wanted to make sure we got the word out. And so Daniel Mettler, if you're not aware, is from 2SIC. You can find him at 2SIC.com. That's the number 2, SIC.com. He's the CEO. He's been building websites for 20 years now, right, Daniel?
Yep, since 1999.
Yeah, so we have already interviewed Daniel in a previous episode of DNN Hangout. We'll put that in the show notes as well as everything else that we're talking about. So we're not going to really interview Daniel directly. He's a very, very interesting individual, so I do invite you to go look at that interview if you haven't already seen it. Let's just say there's a reason he's called Jungle Boy. All right. So before we get started with exactly what he's going to be showing us, I do want to throw out there, DNN Connect is coming up. That's dnn-connect.org. It's in Switzerland from June 6th through June 9th. So do make sure you go there. You'll see myself there. You see Daniel there. You see many of the people that you talk to online. It's a really fun conference. The European conferences are always a blast. Is there anything in particular you're looking forward to, Daniel?
Well, I think the big thing is always getting back together with friends. So that's like probably always the biggest thing anyways, right? And the rest, like, it doesn't even matter too much, but you always learn a lot there. And you really, what's always great is people get together and they found like new like teams that say, okay, let's tackle this challenge together. So there's a lot of really intense spirit, and that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as it goes with conferences, the thing I always like to say is it's kind of like a family get-together, right? It's like a family gathering because we talk to each other all year long. You know, we have a good time. We're communicating. We're collaborating. We're building stuff together. You know, we're helping each other. And then all of a sudden we can see each other face-to-face in, like, real life and share beer or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget to sleep, but that's a whole nother story.
Or we fall off the balcony. That happens as well.
Yeah, yeah. We won't go into any great detail about that, but I do remember coming back to my room, and it was like the light was coming up, right? Like we had, the sun was literally come up. We're like, we got to go to bed. And so there's like 3 or 4 of us left over. Ran to my room. I'm like getting ready for bed, and there's a knock on my window in the back. And I'm like, what in the world is this? There's Daniel. It's like, hey, do you know who this guy is? Anyway, that's all we'll say about that. So needless to say, it's a fantastic time. Do come and see us. And yeah, so Daniel has created something called Azing. Why don't you tell us about it?
Okay, so basically the whole thing goes back way, way, way long time ago. Because, I mean, I came from the jungle. That's the story there. And when I came to Switzerland, I made my own company. I had no plan of how to even manage a company or do anything. And so, of course, after a few years, I ran into problems that every young entrepreneur has, which is that people work in different ways. The maintenance gets really, really difficult. Basically, what happens is that we'll have solutions that people, and they did it in a cool way that they liked or the best way they knew, and it was really good. And what happens is the stuff, once you have to maintain it, everybody does it differently, and it gets really, really hard. Usually, literally, hours fixing things which are not billable, which is behind the office. And so I just figured there would be a better way to do this. And it's a really hard challenge. I think everybody has it. Every team has it. And it has to do with making sure the knowledge of how to do it is out there, making sure people also do it right. And so I kind of envisioned a Wikipedia of instructions, like recipes, checklists, which tell you step by step how to do something. Of course, every team can have their own conventions, but just like saying, okay, if you set up a DNN this and this and this way, then we know that the follow-up steps will certainly work. And just having something like that was always my big vision. And then we created something like that for us internally. And it worked really well. And then I realized that, of course, we're not the only ones having this, and I thought I must be able to make something which is global. Again, like a Wikipedia, where everybody can publish their best ways of doing things. People could use that, people could copy it and modify it, and so that's kind of the idea. So it's not just about technical development. The vision, of course, is that if a farmer in Kenya wants to provide instructions how to create fertilizer from cow poop, awesome. That would be really good for other farmers in Kenya. So the idea is just to put everything on here like a Wikipedia, but it's more instruction style. That's the whole vision.
Yeah, so it's very cool that like you have the ability to be able to share knowledge in a way that's functional, right? So I think it'd be best if we actually showed people what you're talking about. So why don't we take a look at Azing? So
this is a platform, and the mascot here is a red panda, by the way, because we just figured it's really cool to have like a little animal that has like automatically has a superhero mask, and we figured the red panda would be cool. The raccoon didn't go too well because with the raccoon you'd have the problem that culturally it's like a lousy animal in a lot of cultures, so we figured red panda is awesome. So that's our amazing red panda, and let me just show you a very simple example of a recipe that we have. For example, I'm just going to show you a practical thing that we just did for ourselves. So I just got a new laptop, and of course I know everybody else on my team is going to get one as well. And so as I was setting it up, Visual Studio and everything, I just wrote down all the steps that I did to set it up so that the rest of my team will save lots of time when they do it. So is it, by the way, size-wise okay on your side, or should I zoom?
Yeah, we can see it just fine. And in post, whenever needed, I can always zoom in, so don't worry.
Okay, great. So this is like how to develop, how our workstations are set up. So it has all these steps, like first of all, set up Node using the version manager. And some people might know how to do it, but they might not, so they can just unfold the recipe and look at it. And they usually will, because there's usually hidden jewels in here. For example, there's always this one little step people tend to forget. And so there's just instructions how to do this. And this way, even if somebody does this for the first time in their life, I can be sure their device is set up correctly. So when they run into a problem, I don't have to guess what did they do 4 weeks ago to end up like this. And what's really cool is that if my team like is running this recipe, is using it, and they're like, gosh, this needs an additional step, they know they can just write it in here, and they know everybody after them will also see that. So they don't have to like have a conference and tell everybody, by the way, there's this extra step. They just write it in here. Everybody that comes later on will have that. And so let's say I did that, I did this, I did a bunch of stuff, and then let's say I installed Visual Studio Code. And here again, it's super trivial, but if you don't set the right checkboxes, or if you don't install this really, really cool font a lot of people don't know about, they won't do it. And this just makes sure everybody does it the right way. And it's so trivial, but everything that builds on that will just be so much easier because everybody did it the same way. And so this is just a first simple example from the techie world, how we use it.
So what we're looking at is you at some point, you gain the knowledge and you did the steps in a specific order, and you got a laptop all set up and it's all good to go. And now somebody else can see this or maybe build their own recipe that includes this. And so basically we have kind of like a webbing of best practices. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And somebody might say, okay, I kind of like it, but let's say I don't use Visual Studio Code. So they can make their own recipe and link my sub-recipes, because they might like the sub-recipes but not just want to skip a few steps. So they can do that because these are all, again, just little tiny recipe documents. It's like a function call, kind of, that you can now share from your recipe.
Nice, nice. And so one of the things I noticed when I was looking at this before was you're not only able to say that I did this or I didn't do this, but you can also say I won't do this, right?
Exactly. So if you can like check something, or you can take it again and say this is something I'm not going to do. And yes, this is great because later on, you'll be able to forward the state how you did it to somebody else. That's a feature that's going to be finished in May. So I can do a few steps, and then I'm going to send it to somebody else to complete something. And in that case, if some things are not ticked, they won't know, are they supposed to do that now, or is it never going to happen? And of course, this is a simple recipe, and it looks like only one person will do it. But if I have something like a website go live, where first hosting has to do a few steps, then they forward that to the web developer to make a few last tests, then the project manager looks at it, and now there was this font test, right? Does the external font work? Well, did he forget to do it, or did he decide not to do it? So that's really important.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about this is that this doesn't, like, right now, so far, our audience is obviously mostly DNN related, right? And it's mostly technical. But this doesn't have to be technical things. This could be anything.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe I'll show a brief example of my own private repository. So this is the iJungleBoy. And so I have this travel checklist recipe for a business trip. And the business trip, by the way, is like a set of steps which are more for business, because I have a different one like for holidays, which will have other steps, but they share a lot of common parts. So I didn't have to rewrite it from scratch. And so let's look at the business trip here. And if we look at this, this is like I would write down where I'm going to go, how long, special activities, etc. And I would say whether I'm going to go with a family or not. And then 4 weeks ahead of time, I would decide, do I need any special thing I need to remember about suitcase size or stuff like that? Do I need to organize some kind of a power adapter? And this is the really important thing. Everybody's left for whatever, and in the last minute they realize they screwed up because they forgot some important preparation. In this case, usually the giveaways or something. So this, because I'm starting this when I register to the conference, I know, oops, I should also prepare the giveaways. So I'll fill this in and then send this to my secretary so that she can prepare everything. So we did that already, of course, and now our giveaways are already on the way to Peter Donker, just to make sure they're there in time.
Outstanding, outstanding. So anybody could use this, right? All they have to do, they come to your website, they create a new account, and they can just start creating recipes, right?
Yes, it's super simple. It's just editing similar to Word. So this is a bit more complicated because it has fields, of course, so it has these square brackets in here. But, whoop, I just switched windows here. But otherwise, it's just a list of text. And everything is automatically turned into a checkbox. And we'll add more features as it goes, but the idea is you just write what you want, or you copy it from a different document, and you immediately have a recipe that can be linked.
Outstanding. In terms of, you mentioned like there's private and public. So, what's the difference between private and public for people? Okay, so let's say these are my recipes here, and there's like stuff that I'm going to do, like traveling recipes, which I just want to share with everybody because it's a good start for them as well. But then again, I might have something like where I prepare my tax returns, and there's this yearly thing. I just want to make sure I don't forget anything. There will be things in there I don't really want to share just because it's personal. So that's going to be private to myself only. Awesome.
So that's the main difference.
Very cool, very cool.
Okay. Yeah. And there will be some repos or some catalogs which are fully public. So for example, DNN Connect or DNN Community, everything in here will be just public. And of course, we'll try to get a lot of people to become members of this catalog so that this can be edited by a lot of people, right? I mean, it's not my catalog. Like if there's a recipe to set up DNN and somebody needs to add that and they're one of the people that know how it works, yes, great, go ahead and do it. And that's going to be all public, for example.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I definitely wanted to hit on before the end of the interview is that, like, there's definitely documentation out there. Like there's DNN Docs, and it does a fantastic job of showing you something and helping you find it. But this allows you, as an extra step, to say, you know what, and here's the exact steps I'm on, and maybe I got to step 4 of 12, and I had to go to lunch, or the boss called me in, or something like that, and you can figure out exactly where you left off without having to do anything else.
Yes. And if you're on step 3 and you're like, it says, make sure you're a super user and you don't know what that is, well, you can now click on it and expand that information without opening a lot of browser windows and getting completely lost in the information.
That's a really good point. Awesome. So as far as Azing, like what's the future of Azing? What do people have to look forward to in like the next 12 months?
So first of all, the vision, of course, is to be a global Wikipedia. And that, of course, means it'll really thrive if people contribute a lot. So, of course, I hope that we'll get that momentum going, because the more recipes that are out there, the easier it is for somebody to start and just write their own things. Like somebody might want to write a prepare for a marathon. And if somebody else already made a recipe for like a diet plan for like extreme sports, and they can reference that, then it's so much easier to create a marathon recipe because there's just already material out there. So the first thing, of course, is it's just getting people into it. That's going to be the biggest challenge. But in terms of features, the next thing we're really working on is that there will be something like a task system, so that when you set your check boxes, it'll remember that, and you'll be able to run the same recipe again and again and again. And the important thing is also that, let's say I set up 20 DNNs, and then I realized that I had to change the recipe because something wasn't good. Then I would be able to see how many times did I run this recipe already in the wrong way. So that makes it much easier for me to fix things, right? So that's a big thing that should be done this May.
Outstanding, outstanding. Yeah, so it's just one more plug for DNN Connect. What sessions are you giving at DNN Connect?
So DNN Connect, please come, be there. It's just wonderful. It's a big family, and you should be part of it. I think I'll have a session about 2Sexy10, which should probably come out on International Towel Day. So usually we have the May the 4th, but International Towel Day, do you know what that is?
I have no idea, and I'm afraid.
So International Towel Day is all about the number 42, the meaning of life and everything. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's the 25th. And if everything works out, we're going to launch 2Sexy10 then, which is much slicker, much faster. It's using Angular. And yeah, so that's the big session. And I will also give a session on how to use recipes in a business to do everything from marketing to customer acquisition, hiring, everything, using that with recipes. So those are my 2 big sessions.
Outstanding. Well, the last thing that I have is I'm going to steal presentation view from you real quick. It says my screen's being shared, but in preparation for this, I created my own recipe. Look at that.
All right.
So we tried to do this one time before, and you know, I ran into some issues with some software upgrades that happened in the background and stuff, and so I was like, you know what? This will be easier if I have a recipe for it, and then I can send this also to the future guests of the show. So we already have our own little DNN Hangout Prep recipe. What do you think of that?
Very cool, very cool. In 3 minutes, you can copy it over to Azing and send it around, and it'll work.
Yep, it was very cool. Yeah, so let me stop showing our screen. We're going to look at ourselves again real quick. All right. So thank you again, Daniel, for us taking the time to, you know, show us Azing, and for, well, first of all, for building it and releasing it out in the wild. You know, it's a very cool tool. I think a lot of people are going to really benefit from it. I know I, for one, am going to be recommending people even outside the DNN ecosystem, especially. I know some people that have teams where they need to do things, and you know, this will help them get through those tasks. So yeah, so in closing, you have anything else for the audience? Any exciting announcements or anything else to promote?
I think I already have almost everything. I mean, I could do a short demo of editing, but except for that, if we want to keep it short, I think we're good.
Well, I think the editing experience is quite straightforward. You know, myself and David Poindexter were playing with it the other day, and just like going through it, and you know, for first release, like, it's very, very impressive. So well done. And for those of you that are DNN minded, it is built on 2Sexy. It is built on DNN. So it's a fantastic example of a DNN website as well. So thank you again, Daniel. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you and everybody else at DNN Connect. Thank you for watching the DNN Hangout. And we'll see you at the next one, and we'll have Ralph there too. Well, we'll have Ralph in the next Hangout. We won't have him at DNN Connect, unfortunately. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.